Captain Elias Grant had seen many stars in his lifetime, but none quite like Zitari Prime. The planet hung in the darkness of space like a jewel, its blue oceans and green continents shining under the light of a distant sun. Humans had only recently made contact with the Zitari, an alien species known for their intelligence, advanced technology, and strict social order. Most humans approached them with awe, some with fear. Elias approached with quiet curiosity. He stepped off the shuttle onto the smooth landing platform, his boots making soft echoes in the vast hall. Around him, other human diplomats moved nervously, speaking in low voices to their guides. Elias, however, remained calm. He had learned long ago that fear and impatience could cloud judgment. The Zitari themselves were tall and elegant, with translucent skin that shimmered faintly under the light. Their eyes were larger than human eyes, dark and reflective, giving the impression that they could see everything at once. Among them, one figure stood out, a young woman wearing a silver robe that marked her as a member of the royal family. Her posture was perfect, her movements graceful, yet there was something in her gaze that suggested curiosity and challenge. This was Princess Lyra, heir to the Zitari throne. She had been waiting for the humans, but her attention quickly focused on Elias. Most humans seemed nervous or awed by the Zitari's presence, but he walked with confidence, careful and deliberate. Lyra's sharp mind immediately noticed this. "Captain Elias Grant," she said, her voice calm but melodic, echoing slightly in the hall. "Welcome to Zitari Prime." Elias inclined his head respectfully. "Princess Lyra, it is an honor to meet you." A small smile appeared on her lips, almost imperceptible. "Most humans arrive here, speaking too much or too little," she said. "You speak with balance. Why is that?" Elias paused, choosing his words carefully. "I find that listening often teaches more than speaking. And me." Lyra raised an eyebrow, intrigued. She was not used to humans who did not try to impress her. Most visitors tried to charm or flatter, hoping to gain favor. Elias did neither. His honesty, calmness, and quiet confidence immediately set him apart. "Interesting," she said softly, her voice carrying a note of amusement. "Perhaps you are different from your kind. We shall see." Elias allowed a faint smile. "I hope to learn as much from your people as they may learn from mine." For the next few hours, Elias was led through the palace. The architecture was breathtaking. Towering halls made of crystal-like material, soft lights that seemed to come from the walls themselves, and gardens filled with plants that shimmered with colors unseen on Earth. Zitari technology was impressive, yet it seemed to blend seamlessly with nature, unlike human machinery which often felt intrusive. Lyra accompanied him for part of the tour, asking questions about human exploration and philosophy. Elias answered carefully, showing intelligence without arrogance. He explained that humans valued freedom, creativity, and the courage to make difficult choices, even when outcomes were uncertain. Lyra listened intently. Her people were used to rigid hierarchies and predetermined paths, but humans seemed to thrive in unpredictability. She found this both puzzling and fascinating. "You speak of freedom," Lyra said finally, stopping by a window overlooking the city below. "But you keep your distance. You are not drawn to the center of our court, to the politics and power." Elias looked out at the city, thinking, "I have learned that true understanding comes from observation and patience. Rushing in often leads to mistakes. I do not fear your court, princess, but I respect it, and I respect myself enough to act with care." Lyra studied him silently. She had expected evasive words or empty politeness, but he had given her honesty, delivered with quiet authority. Her curiosity deepened. She had dealt with diplomats before, but none had this level of composure. She wanted to know more, to understand why a human could be so calm, so strong, and yet so restrained. The rest of the day passed with more introductions and careful observation. Elias met Zetari scientists, diplomats, and advisors. He listened more than he spoke, asking thoughtful questions when necessary. Each interaction revealed his intelligence, patience, and subtle humor. Even when a young Zetari scholar attempted to impress him with complex scientific terms, Elias responded with clarity and simplicity, showing understanding without arrogance. By evening, the palace had quieted. Lyra invited Elias to a private balcony overlooking the twin moons of Zetari Prime. The view was breathtaking. Silver light reflected off oceans, and distant cities glowed like clusters of stars on the ground. "You are unlike any human I have met," Lyra said quietly, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. "Most of your kind would seek attention or influence here. You do not. Why?" Elias considered her question. It was direct, sincere, and demanded an honest answer. Yet, he did not rush. "I stay away," he said finally, "because I believe respect is more powerful than influence. Words alone cannot build trust. Actions do." Lyra was silent. She had expected many things from a human charm, flattery, clever speech, but never this. His answer was simple, yet it carried weight. She felt a strange mix of admiration and frustration. She wanted to probe further, to understand, but she also sensed that Elias would not give more than he chose. "Perhaps your kind is stronger than we thought," she said softly, almost to herself. Elias smiled faintly. "Strength is not always shown in power or words. Sometimes it is quiet and unseen, until it is needed most." For the first time, Lyra felt the weight of human resolve. She realized that this captain, this visitor from a distant world, had a presence that went beyond words. She did not fully understand him, but she knew one thing: humans, and especially Elias, were not to be underestimated. As the night deepened and the moons cast silver shadows across the balcony, Lyra continued to watch him. He did not seek her approval, nor did he flinch under her gaze. He simply was confident, calm, and principled. And for reasons she could not yet articulate, this unsettled her. For Elias, it was another day in a long journey of exploration. He had come to Zetari Prime to observe, to understand, and to represent humanity. Yet he could not deny the curiosity he felt for this alien princess who challenged him not with force or command, but with questions and insight. He wondered quietly, how many others in the galaxy would value strength of character over strength of arms? How many would see the quiet courage that humans carried with them everywhere they went? As the first part of the mission ended, both human and Zetari observers sensed the beginning of something unusual. A meeting of minds that could change more than just diplomatic relations. Elias did not know what lay ahead. Princess Lyra did not know either. But in that silent balcony moment, under the light of twin moons, both realized that a simple question why he stayed away could be the start of something extraordinary. And for Elias, his reply, calm, honest, and unshakable, would already begin to leave an impression that not even an alien princess could ignore. The days after his arrival on Zetari Prime passed quickly for Captain Elias Grant. Official meetings, tours, and introductions to the planet's leaders kept him busy. Yet he could not shake the feeling that someone was always watching him, and that someone was Princess Lyra. Unlike most of her court, Lyra did not approach him with commands or authority. Instead, she approached with curiosity. She seemed fascinated by his calm demeanor, his careful words, and the quiet confidence that humans carried so naturally. But there was also tension in her presence, subtle and electric, like a storm waiting to break. On the third day, Lyra requested a private meeting in one of the palace gardens. The gardens were unlike anything Elias had seen on Earth: vast, glowing plants that responded to touch, streams that shimmered with light instead of water, and flowers that seemed to hum softly with energy. The air was fragrant, sweet, and clean, unlike the mechanical scent of many human cities. Lyra waited near a fountain, her silver robes reflecting the soft light of the twin moons that were still faint in the sky. When Elias approached, she did not rise to greet him. She simply observed, her eyes sharp and assessing. "Captain Grant," she said, her tone neutral. "You continue to stay at a distance. Even now. You do not involve yourself fully in our discussions or social gatherings. Why? Are Jean reporting too? Why?" Elias considered her words carefully. He did not flinch under her gaze, but he did not answer immediately. "Because," he said finally, "I believe observation teaches more than participation. Listening and understanding come before action." Lyra tilted her head, clearly intrigued. Most of her people did not understand such restraint. To the Zitari, hesitation could be weakness. But Elias's calm and careful approach suggested something stronger, a deliberate choice that demanded attention. "You are not like other humans I have studied," she said softly. "Most would seek recognition, or at least attempt to influence the outcome of our court. You do not." "I do not act to impress or control," Elias replied. "I act to understand, and when necessary, to help." Lyra stepped closer, studying his face. "Yet your silence is maddening," she admitted. "You make people wonder what you think, what you feel. It is irritating." Elias allowed himself a small, polite smile. "It is not my goal to irritate. It is my goal to act with clarity and principle. Emotions can be important, but they should not rule action." Lyra frowned slightly, a sign of both frustration and curiosity. She had expected a clever answer, or perhaps a diplomatic lie. Instead, she found honesty, and honesty delivered with subtle strength. She had to admit, it was unusual. Humans were often unpredictable, impulsive, and emotional. Elias was neither. Yet he seemed fully human in his reactions. For the next hour, they walked through the gardens in silence, observing glowing insects and plants that moved as if they were alive. Lyra's mind was busy analyzing every word and gesture, trying to decipher his intentions. Elias walked calmly, listening more than speaking, showing patience that even Zitari advisors found impressive. Finally, Lyra spoke again. "Do you not fear misjudgment?" she asked. "Do you not fear that humans and Zitari may misunderstand your intentions?" Elias shook his head slowly. "I do not fear misunderstanding. I expect it. But I also know that integrity and action speak louder than words. One does not need to explain everything to be understood eventually." Lyra's eyes widened slightly. His words were simple, yet they carried a depth she was unprepared for. Most Zitari would boast of their intellect or status, seeking admiration or compliance. Elias did neither. His strength lay in quiet confidence, in the ability to act without seeking validation. "You are very different," Lyra said finally, her voice softer now. "I expected humans to be loud, proud, or arrogant. You are not any of those things. And yet, I cannot ignore your presence." Elias met her gaze, steady and calm. "Presence alone is not enough. It is what one does with it that matters." Lyra studied him silently, the tension between them growing. She wanted to pull him into conversation, to challenge him further, but she also realized that he would not respond unless he chose to. His restraint was deliberate, a boundary she could not cross easily. And yet, the more she tried to understand him, the more fascinated she became. Their silence was interrupted by a sudden alert from the palace, a minor disturbance in a nearby sector. Security teams rushed past them, and Lyra's attention snapped back to duty. Elias followed calmly, observing the situation with measured curiosity. Once the situation was resolved without conflict, Lyra turned to him again. "Why do you not seek influence here?" she asked. "Even now, you could impress many with your knowledge and confidence, yet you remain apart." Elias considered the question carefully. Influence is temporary. Integrity lasts. I do not need others to recognize me in order to act rightly. I focus on what is necessary, not on who notices. Lyra's expression softened slightly. She realized that Elias's restraint was not avoidance, but a conscious choice. He valued principles above personal gain. He acted from belief, not from desire for recognition. And this, she understood, was a quality rare even among Zaytari leaders. For the next few days, Lyra continued to observe him, testing his patience with questions, challenging his logic, and inviting him to discussions that most humans would find overwhelming. Yet, Elias remained calm, respectful, and clear-headed. He never allowed frustration or arrogance to guide him, and he never abandoned his quiet principles. Lyra began to see that human strength was different from Zaytari strength. While her people valued power, precision, and influence, humans could hold their ground with principle, courage, and quiet determination. It was subtle, yet powerful. During a private evening, Lyra confronted him again. "Captain Grant, I do not understand. Why do you not involve yourself fully? Why maintain distance when you could easily impress, influence, or charm? It puzzles me." Elias looked out over the city lights, his face calm. "Because influence is not the goal. Understanding, respect, and right action are. I act when necessary, and I act with care. That is why I remain apart, not from fear, but from choice." Lyra was silent. She realized that his distance was not a weakness, but a demonstration of strength. Most beings, she thought, would see absence as disinterest. Yet Elias's absence was deliberate, principled, and respectful. It spoke of courage and wisdom she had never fully encountered. For the first time, Lyra felt something unfamiliar. Admiration, mixed with frustration. She wanted to break through his calm exterior, to understand him fully, but she also sensed that some things could not be forced. Elias chose what to reveal. His strength lay in his choice, not in her understanding. That evening, as the twin moons reflected on the palace gardens, Lyra stood silently, thinking. She realized that humans, and Elias in particular, were unpredictable in ways that were both intriguing and unsettling. She could not command him, manipulate him, or easily categorize him. And yet, she wanted to. Elias, for his part, continued his work, observing the Zaytari, learning their ways, and quietly representing humanity. He did not seek attention or favor, but he also noticed Lyra's interest, subtle as it was. He understood that she was curious, not just about him, but about humans in general. And so a subtle tension settled between them, a mixture of curiosity, admiration, and quiet challenge. Neither spoke much of it, but both understood its presence. The days ahead promised discovery, growth, and perhaps lessons that neither human nor Zaytari had anticipated. For now, Elias remained patient, calm, and principled, the quiet observer in a world that expected boldness. And Lyra, despite herself, could not look away. The palace of Zaytari Prime was alive with quiet energy. Bright light reflected off crystal floors, and corridors hummed softly with alien technology. Yet, amidst all this beauty and precision, Captain Elias Grant moved like a shadow, calm, observant, and deliberate. He had learned to read people quickly, to see their intentions without being drawn into unnecessary conflict. But even he could not ignore the presence of Princess Lyra. Lyra had decided that simple curiosity was no longer enough. She needed to understand humans not from their stories, but from their actions. She arranged for Elias to participate in a series of challenges designed to test his intellect, judgment, and adaptability. The Zaytari court watched with interest, expecting humans to struggle. But Elias was not an ordinary human. His strength lay in patience, intelligence, and quiet determination. The first challenge was a puzzle of logic and timing. Lyra presented a complex device made of interlocking rings and energy circuits. "Captain Grant," she said, "untangle this. If you fail, you will learn that human patience has limits." Elias studied the device carefully. Most humans would have rushed, trying to force the solution. But he observed quietly, noting the patterns, the connections, and the hidden logic. Slowly, methodically, he worked, aligning the rings and adjusting the circuits. The device clicked into place with perfect precision. Lyra's eyes widened. "You did it without frustration." Most would have grown impatient. "When they're one, ID. One." Lyra's eyes, "When they're one. One. When they're one." Elias inclined his head. Frustration is an enemy of understanding. Calm thought often reveals what force cannot. The next challenge was more subtle. Lyra asked him questions about human society, morality, and decision-making. Some were simple. Others were layered with ethical dilemmas. "If your species faced a choice between survival and honesty," she asked, "which would you choose?" Elias paused. His answer was measured. Humans understand that survival is necessary, but survival without principle is meaningless. We act to preserve life, yes, but we also act according to values. Sometimes that requires sacrifice, even when survival is at risk. Lyra leaned forward, fascinated. "Your species seems paradoxical. Strong and vulnerable, courageous, yet cautious." Elias allowed a small, polite smile. "Strength is often misunderstood. It is not only the power to act, but the wisdom to act correctly." Lyra watched him, trying to see where his limits lay. She had expected some flaw, some sign of weakness that she could exploit to understand humans. Yet, he remained composed, consistent, and clear. Every answer, every action, demonstrated intelligence and integrity. She realized that human strength was different from Za'Tari strength, not measured by authority or control, but by character and principle. The final challenge of the day was practical. A simulation of a disaster struck the palace. A breach in the energy grid threatened the stability of the upper city. Lyra observed as Elias assessed the situation quickly. He did not panic. He directed Za'Tari engineers to stabilize the energy flow while calmly coordinating the evacuation of non-essential personnel. Despite the urgency, Elias's voice remained calm and confident. "Prioritize containment first. Evacuate all personnel safely. Then, we assess repairs. Move with purpose, not haste." Lyra's advisors were amazed. They had expected chaos, yet this human moved with clarity and precision. She realized that his restraint was not avoidance, but preparation, a quality rare among leaders, alien or human. After the simulation ended successfully, Lyra confronted him again. "You remain calm in ways I cannot predict. Even when everything seems at risk, you act with clarity and authority without arrogance. How do you do this?" Elias looked at her steadily. "I do not act without thought. I assess the situation, consider consequences, and act according to what is necessary and right. Confidence comes from preparation, not pride." Lyra's eyes narrowed slightly. She had spent hours trying to uncover human weakness, and yet she found none. Instead, she found wisdom, courage, and quiet determination. The more she learned, the more intrigued she became. In private, Lyra pressed further. "Captain Grant, why do you maintain distance from us? You could impress, lead, or influence here, yet you choose not to. It puzzles me." Elias considered her carefully. "Distance is not avoidance. It is respect. I do not interfere unnecessarily, and I do not act for recognition. I observe, learn, and act when necessary. That is how humans build understanding and trust." Lyra's lips parted slightly in surprise. She had expected arrogance, charm, or manipulation. Instead, she found honesty and principle. Her mind struggled to reconcile this with her prior assumptions about humans. She realized that this distance, this quiet restraint, was a demonstration of strength far beyond what her people valued. Later, as they walked through the upper gardens, Lyra spoke softly. "You're kind. You are unpredictable. Not in actions, but in motivation. I do not understand why you choose what you choose. And yet, I cannot ignore it. You command attention without demanding it. You impress without trying. It is unsettling." Elias smiled faintly. Unpredictability is a consequence of choice. Humans act according to principles, not convenience. That is why we may seem strange to others, including the Zitari. Lyra stopped and looked at him directly. "You speak as if actions are more important than words. Yet here we are, talking endlessly. Is there nothing that can silence your words?" Elias considered her carefully. "Words are tools. They are useful when paired with understanding. But true lessons are shown, not told." For the first time, Lyra felt something she had not expected. Admiration mixed with humility. This human, this visitor from a distant world, did not seek power, recognition, or praise. He acted according to principle, and that principle gave him strength that was hard to resist, even for a princess accustomed to authority. The subtle tension between them grew. Lyra wanted to understand more, to test him further, yet she realized that some things could not be forced. Elias's strength lay not in dominance, but in choice, in the quiet decision to act rightly, no matter the consequences. As night fell, the twin moons casting silver light across the palace. Lyra and Elias stood overlooking the gardens. She said softly, almost to herself, "Perhaps humans are stronger than we imagined." Elias did not respond immediately. He simply watched the gardens, calm and observant, as he had watched countless worlds before. Yet in his silence, Lyra understood something profound. Strength did not always roar. Sometimes it waited, quiet, patient, and unshakable. And for Lyra, that understanding was both unsettling and inspiring. She realized that the lessons humans could teach were more than knowledge or technology. They were lessons of courage, restraint, and principle. The subtle tension between them promised challenges ahead, not of combat, not of politics, but of understanding. And both of them knew that in this quiet struggle of minds, neither would emerge unchanged. For Captain Elias Grant, the human strength that seemed ordinary to him was extraordinary to the Zetari, and for Princess Lyra, understanding that strength, and perhaps learning from it, would test everything she knew about leadership, intelligence, and respect. The calm of Zitari Prime was shattered by an unexpected alarm. A massive storm had formed over the northern city, a tempest of wind and energy that threatened to destroy homes, laboratories, and even the palace gardens. Alerts blared through the palace corridors, and security teams scrambled to respond. Most diplomats and visitors panicked or froze, unsure of what to do. Captain Elias Grant remained calm. He assessed the situation quickly, his mind running through options, priorities, and consequences. He did not need to command. He simply acted. His eyes scanned the holographic map of the city, noting which areas were most vulnerable and which zones could be evacuated first. Princess Lyra arrived at the command center moments later, her usual composure replaced with concern. She expected the humans around her to be flustered, perhaps even useless. But Elias moved with certainty. "Captain Grant," she called, her voice tense. "What should we do?" Elias looked at her calmly. "We must protect life first. Evacuate civilians, stabilize energy grids, and ensure no one is trapped. Focus on action, not fear. Lead your teams efficiently, and I will coordinate the rescue efforts. Lyra watched as he directed both human and Zitari teams, his voice steady and clear. He assigned tasks logically, anticipating problems before they occurred. The palace's advanced technology was impressive, but without coordination, it would have been ineffective. Elias's presence transformed chaos into order. The storm was approaching fast. Buildings shook, winds ripped at the gardens, and energy surges threatened to collapse the city's power network. Yet Elias remained composed, moving from one command post to another, checking status updates, and giving precise instructions. "Divert auxiliary power to the northern grid," he ordered. "Evacuate the laboratories immediately. Keep communication lines open. Prioritize the children and the elderly. Move with purpose, not panic." Lyra could hardly believe what she was seeing. This human, a visitor from another world, had not only understood the situation immediately, but had also led both humans and Zitari with perfect clarity. The storm tested every skill, every decision, and every ounce of courage, yet Elias's calm, patient leadership never wavered. At one point, a section of the northern city began to collapse under the storm. A team of Zitari engineers was trapped inside. Without hesitation, Elias directed rescue units with precision, coordinating their actions while ensuring the safety of every individual. He moved alongside them, quietly helping lift debris and guide them to safety. Lyra followed him, stunned by his courage. She had seen strong leaders before, but Elias's strength was different. It was quiet, patient, and principled. He did not seek glory or recognition. He acted because it was the right thing to do. And in doing so, he inspired those around him to act with the same determination. Hours passed. The storm raged. Yet, under Elias's guidance, the majority of the city was stabilized. Injuries were minimized, critical infrastructure protected, and the evacuation successful. Lyra walked through the streets beside him, her mind struggling to process everything she had witnessed. You did this without fear," she said softly, her voice almost trembling. "Most Zitari would panic. Most humans would panic. Yet you led with calmness and certainty. How?" Nunder. Elias looked at her quietly. "Leadership is not about fearlessness. It is about responsibility, preparation, and action. Fear is natural, but it should not control decisions. When faced with danger, one must act with clarity and principle." Lyra nodded slowly. She had spent days observing him, testing his patience, probing his character, and challenging his logic. And now she understood. His distance, his quietness, his restraint, all were part of the same principle. He acted, not for recognition, not for influence, but because it was right. The realization struck her deeply. Humans, she realized, were not merely clever or resourceful. They were principled. Their courage was not loud or dramatic, but quiet, steadfast, and unshakable. Elias embodied this in every action, every decision, every calm word. As the storm finally began to subside, Lyra turned to him again. "Captain Grant, I understand now. You stayed away, not because you lacked courage, but because you valued integrity and action over recognition. You act for what is right, not for what others will think of you." Elias nodded, modest yet confident. Actions speak louder than words. Principles guide behavior. Respect, patience, and understanding are more powerful than fear or force. Lyra was silent, absorbing the weight of his words. She realized that everything she had assumed about humans had been incomplete. They were not merely adaptable or intelligent. They were courageous in ways the Zitari could scarcely imagine. They valued freedom, choice, and integrity above all. For the first time, Lyra felt a profound respect, tinged with awe. The princess who had questioned, tested, and challenged him could not find words to respond. Her curiosity had grown into admiration, and her admiration carried the quiet humility that Elias had inspired in everyone around him. The storm had ended, but its lessons remained. Zitari and human teams alike spoke of Elias's calm leadership, his clear judgment, and his unwavering principles. He had not only saved lives but had also shown a new form of strength, one based on character, courage, and respect. That evening, in the quiet of the palace gardens, Lyra approached him once more. The air was cool, and the twin moons cast silver light across the shimmering plants. She did not speak immediately, choosing instead to watch him. Finally, she asked, softly, "Captain Grant, why did you maintain distance all this time? I see now that your actions are more powerful than words. And yet, you stayed apart." Elias regarded her calmly. Distance is respect for others, and for oneself. I do not need approval or recognition to act rightly. I observe, learn, and intervene when necessary. My actions define me, not my presence. Lyra was silent. She realized that this answer, simple as it was, carried more truth than any words she had heard in her life. She had expected complexity, strategy, or cleverness. Instead, she received honesty, principle, and quiet wisdom. For a long moment, the two of them stood together in the garden, under the twin moons, with the city safe once more. Lyra's mind raced with understanding, realization, and admiration. She understood why Elias had stayed away, why he had been patient, and why he had acted only when necessary. In that silence, she recognized the true nature of human strength. It was not in power, persuasion, or dominance. It was in integrity, courage, and the quiet commitment to do what was right. And for Princess Lyra, the lesson was profound. Elias Grant, human explorer, had not only saved lives that day, but had revealed to her the very essence of human resilience and principle. For the first time, she felt a sense of awe so deep that words failed her. The princess who had sought answers, questioned motives, and challenged his character was silenced not by fear, but by understanding. Elias, as always, remained calm. He did not need praise or acknowledgement. His actions, guided by principle, had spoken louder than words ever could. And in that moment, both human and Zitari realized that some strengths are timeless, universal, and quietly extraordinary. The night after the storm, Zitari Prime felt calm and peaceful. The city lights reflected off the crystal buildings, and the gardens shimmered under the glow of the twin moons. Yet within the palace, Princess Lyra felt a tension she could not shake. She had spent days observing Captain Elias Grant, questioning him, testing him, and trying to understand his strange, quiet strength. Despite everything, she still did not fully understand him. His calmness, his integrity, and his careful restraint were unusual, even among humans. And the way he had acted during the storm, leading both humans and Zitari without fear or arrogance, had left her in awe. For the first time, she realized that some things could not be fully grasped by observation alone. Lyra decided to speak to him privately. She found Elias in the palace gardens, standing quietly beneath the silver light of the moons. He was observing the plants, the soft glow of the garden lights, and the faint reflections on the streams. He did not notice her approach until she spoke. "Captain Grant," she said softly, "I have asked many questions, tested your patience, and challenged your principles, and yet, I still do not understand fully. Why did you maintain distance all this time? Why did you act the way you did during the storm? Why do you remain yourself, even under pressure?" Elias turned to her, his expression calm and thoughtful. "Princess Lyra," he said quietly, "I have never tried to impress, to manipulate, or to control. I act according to what I believe is right. My distance is not avoidance, it is respect. Respect for your people, for their freedom, and for the choices they must make. And respect for myself, to act with honesty and principle at all times. Lyra listened carefully, her eyes searching his. She had expected complex strategies, clever words, or some hidden agenda. Instead, she found something far stronger: simple, clear honesty. Elias did not need to manipulate her or his surroundings. His strength was in his character, in the quiet confidence to act rightly, without needing approval or recognition. Even during the storm, he continued, I did what I could because it was necessary. Not for praise, not for recognition, and not for fear. I acted because it was the right thing to do. Principles guide humans, and I am no different. Actions speak louder than words. Lyra's lips parted slightly, and for a moment, she said nothing. She had expected answers, yet these words were more than answers. They were a revelation. She realized, fully for the first time, that human strength was not measured by power, control, or status, but by courage, restraint, and the willingness to act rightly, even when no one watches. You are unlike anyone I have met, she whispered. I have questioned, tested, and challenged you, and yet you never faltered, never lied, and never lost your calm. I do not know what to say. Elias smiled faintly, a small, humble gesture. There is nothing to say, princess. Understanding comes with time. And some things, perhaps, are meant to be learned through observation and experience, not words. Lyra's heart raced, but not from fear. It was a mix of admiration, respect, and something deeper, a recognition that this human, this captain from a distant world, had shown her a kind of strength she had never seen before. For all her intelligence, training, and royal upbringing, she could not match the clarity, courage, and principle that he displayed. She sat down on a nearby bench, her gaze fixed on him. You make it seem so simple, she said softly. To act rightly, to remain calm, to follow principles. Yet I know it is not simple. It requires courage and strength of character, and something more. Something that humans seem to carry naturally. Elias sat beside her, maintaining a respectful distance. It is not easy. Every choice carries consequences. Every action matters. But humans have learned to endure uncertainty, to value principles, and to act with courage. That is what allows us to move forward, even in the most difficult circumstances. Lyra absorbed his words in silence. For the first time, she understood why he had stayed away. He had not been distant out of fear or disinterest. He had been showing respect not only for her, but for the people around him. He had acted according to his principles, allowing others to lead when needed, and stepping in only when necessary. I see it now, she whispered. Your distance was not coldness or avoidance. It was respect. And your actions, they show a kind of strength that I have never seen before. Elias nodded quietly. Strength is not always loud, princess. Sometimes it is quiet, measured, and unshakable. It is not shown in words or displays, but in choices and actions. Lyra's gaze lingered on him, a mixture of awe and humility in her eyes. She realized that the lessons he offered were not just about human courage, but about life itself. Principle, patience, courage, and respect, these were the qualities that defined him, and perhaps all humans. For a long moment, she remained silent, unable to find words that could match the weight of what she had learned. Her questions, challenges, and tests had led her to this understanding. And now she understood fully, yet words failed her. She could not reply with anything more than the respect and admiration that filled her heart. You have silenced me, she admitted finally. her voice barely above a whisper. "Not with words, but with understanding. You have shown me something I cannot ignore, and I am grateful." Elias smiled faintly, acknowledging her words. "That is all I could hope for. Understanding is the true reward, Princess. Not recognition or praise." The twin moons reflected on the gardens around them, casting silver light over the plants and streams. For a moment, the universe felt still. Lyra and Elias sat together in quiet companionship, not needing conversation, not needing explanation. The lessons had been learned. Respect had been earned, and admiration had taken root silently, firmly, and completely. Lyra realized that she had learned far more than she expected from a human visitor. He had shown her courage, principle, and quiet heroism, the kind of strength that inspired without demanding. And in doing so, he had not only silenced her questions, but also reshaped her understanding of leadership, respect, and what it meant to be strong. Elias, as always, remained calm. He did not seek praise or recognition. His actions had spoken louder than words ever could, and in that silence, Princess Lyra understood the essence of human strength: quiet, principled, and unshakable. The night passed peacefully. The storm was gone, the city safe, and the lessons permanent. For both human and Za'atari, the encounter had changed everything. Respect, understanding, and admiration now connected them, a bond not forged by words or power, but by courage, principle, and action. And in that moment, Princess Lyra knew that Captain Elias Grant had not only shown the strength of humanity, but had also left a mark on her mind and heart that would never fade. She was silent, not because she did not have questions, but because she had finally received the answer that needed no words. The answer that came from observation, experience, and principle. For Elias, it was simply another step in his journey as a human explorer, representing his species with honor. But for Princess Lyra, it was a revelation. Humans were strong in ways she had never imagined, and their strength was something to be admired, respected, and learned from. And so, under the twin moons of Za'atari Prime, in the quiet beauty of the palace gardens, a human and an alien princess shared a profound understanding, one that needed no words, for it had been shown in action, patience, and principle.